So I'm planning on going to Bowling Green on Wednesday, and so I was wanting to do just a little bit of research on what it is Bowling Green has to offer. And some people say that Bowling Green is the third biggest city in Kentucky, but that's not true. Covington, Newport, Bellevue, they're basically one city, but they're in different counties and actually have different governments. So they're three cities, but they're all together. Some people actually can argue that Bowling Green and Glasgow are like, neighboring cities too. So maybe it depends on how close they actually are. I'm not sure how close they actually are. But if you add Glasgow's population to Bowling Green, maybe it could actually beat Covington. They call it Greater Cincinnati. Greater Cincinnati is northern Kentucky and all those three cities, Covington, Newport, Bellevue. But Covington itself does have only 40,000, which would make it the fourth biggest city. But if you add Newport and Bellevue, that's another 21,000, and that puts it up to 61,900, which only kind of beats Bowling Green by 1,000. But that would make the Covington area, the greater Covington area, bigger than Bowling Green. But that's no demotion or whatever to Bowling Green, but it does, it shows that Bowling Green is prosperous, big city, 60,000 people. That's, half of them could be Democrats, and then at least a majority of those Democrats need to vote for Jeff Young. And so I'm going to, Jeff Young actually has an interview with a TV station on Wednesday, and we're looking for other things to do political wise, right? I need to call the chair of the Democratic Party there, and some of the other media outlets I think would be a good idea. But okay, so Bowling Green. Okay, I got George W. Johnson here. This Bowling Green was the provisional capital of the Confederacy during the Civil War. So when Kentucky was brother versus brother, they was fighting for neutrality. Then eventually a Confederate Polk, Leonidas Polk, invades Kentucky, and then all bets are off, and the Union invaded. And Kentucky voted in favor of the Union. So actually, Kentucky fought for the winning side. You might not know it looking at all the Confederate flags in the state, but it absolutely is true. So it's because of things like this, though, because it's strategically located, centrally located. So it just makes it a good military, spot. It's just in the middle. It's right there. It's just ideal. Strategically located. It's in an ideal location. So George W. Johnson, he was just a governor that was, they actually had a constitution, and they elected, there was about 60 or 100 representatives all throughout the state. So they set up the Confederate government of Kentucky. They set that up amongst themselves. And then eventually Jefferson Davis recognized them, and then they were fighting with the armies, but they only controlled the areas of Kentucky where the armies and the military was. And then eventually it all ended with the Battle of Perryville. So the Battle of Perryville is when everything just went downhill. Now this guy was the first governor. There was two governors in the Confederacy. While I can't stand the Confederacy, I do think it's fascinating that they established an entire different government. And if the South would have won, then this would be the governors, this whatever 50th governor of Kentucky, and then it would change the entire history. So they, basically they got pushed out of the capital of Frankfort, set up in Bowling Green, Russellville. Specifically, it was in Russellville, and that would be a fun attraction to check out. There's a lot of attractions actually. I'll just roll that. The Western Kentucky University is there, so go Hilltoppers. They've had 4 courthouses so far, so I'm not sure if the other one's burnt down or if they got some old courthouses around. Warren County is actually a dry county. Bowling Green is wet, and the whole county is considered moist. So who knows what the actual laws are. There's a whole bunch of media outlets, a whole bunch of TV stations, a whole bunch of newspapers, lots of businesses, Sweet Temptations, Lisa's Fifth Street Diner, Potter's Castle, which castle's the house of Hohenzollern, and all these royal families all started from a famous castle. And so really I would not ever put the influence of the family that lives in the castle, to the side. There was that one half-built castle near Lexington, Kentucky. The guy started buying it or building it and then ran out of money, and it's just a half castle. But if it gets completed, watch out. Whoever occupies that castle, whoever lives in Potter's Castle, I bet there's some known, they're probably well-known people. Now, the Battle of Perryville, well, let's see, Russellville. It says it's actually in Logan County. So am I not even close here? I thought it was at Bowling Green. It was a provisional Confederate capitals, but it's in a whole nother county. So maybe I'm wrong on this. It was a Confederate, that's what Wikipedia said on Bowling Green. So I don't know. Maybe they established itself there and then went somewhere else. But I mean, who cares? It doesn't really matter. The specifics, right? It doesn't. The specifics. They did do it at the Clark House Russellville Convention. So the convention actually was away from Bowling Green. So that's good. But Wikipedia did at some point the Confederates used Bowling Green as its provisional capital. So Perryville, the Battle of Perryville was the Confederate offensive last stand. That's when eventually the Confederates would never take Kentucky ever again. And the Battle of Perrysville was only in October 1862, which was really soon. So the Confederates didn't have control of Kentucky whatsoever. They had a very slight control. They did have two governors. After that, the first governor was killed. He was fighting as a private and wound up dying in some small battle. And then once he was killed, then another guy stood up and become governor, and they swore in. They offered some oath of allegiance. They couldn't rewrite all the laws, so they said, well, the laws that's already established as part of the laws. So they hurried up and formed a temporary provisional government, and there's two governors. There was a constitution. But it only lasted for less than a year, so not exactly a successful model. If you're going to establish a separate government in the middle of a civil war, you want to establish the government that is against slavery. So do not fight in the name of slavery. So Warren County, generally the county is dry, prohibiting the sale of alcohol, but retail sales are allowed in the wet city of Bowling Green. Warren County is classified as a moist county. So what are you saying here? That's some complicated laws in Warren County. So that's where Bowling Green is Warren County. I think, I'm just guessing here, but it looked like Logan County is pretty close to Warren County. So perhaps the Russellville Convention convened and then they went to Bowling Green. So, okay, Governor Steve Beshear, just a couple news pieces for Bowling Green. Today announced that NHK of America Suspension Components Incorporated is planning a $15 million expansion in Bowling Green. So NASCO, it's a Japanese company, is growing. They're going to spend more money, and it means more jobs. And, of course, Beshear is taking credit for it, acting like he had something to do with it. Japanese are pretty smart when it comes to economics. So I don't even know what they do. Okay, so I don't know if it has something to do with the automobile industry or not, but NASCO is expanding. So I don't know if that means more jobs, but they're definitely investing in more capital for themselves so they can produce more GDP. And everybody goes gaga over this. Another thing, this February 28, 2015, BG Daily News, Bowling Green Daily News. One man was stabbed in an apparent random act of violence. This guy didn't even know the other guy, supposedly. He's on a $2,500 bond. Brian DiCarlo Halcomb. And he's in jail right now. I would assume it's been about 7 days, so he's probably still in jail right now. He just stabbed another guy, and they said that they swear that it's totally unrelated. He just have no idea why they did this. He's at the Warren County Regional Jail, so that's also happening in Bowling Green. Now this is interesting. Some political decisions when it comes to the education of Bowling Green. They have They have Warren County schools and they have Bowling County school or Bowling Green city schools, because there's two basically municipalities, two different jurisdictions. Warren County probably does all the rural areas, and then Bowling Green, they haven't consolidated yet. So like they're not like Louisville. Louisville and Jefferson County is the same thing. And actually so is Los Angeles County. It's LA is the whole county, which I had no idea. So that's really smart for the city to take the whole county. That's you expand how much land and how many voters and people there are, resources, access to resources. And Bowling Green Independent Schools, they are choosing a new superintendent after this school year. So there's been a group that has been approved to help select the new leader: Michael Bishop, Cynthia West, Ada Skillern, Alan Martin, Marcia Ingram, Steve Klein. And eventually they're going to decide who is going to be the new. So they're not going to have a new, that's big news. There's no superintendent. There's going to be a new one. Superintendent controls the entire, city schools of Bowling Green. And I'm not sure how many city schools there are, but that's big news, right, for Bowling Green. This is just random thing. Fayette County. There's a gay man who stabbed another gay man. He almost seems proud of himself. I don't know. He doesn't seem ashamed. Matthew Patrick Donegi, and he's held in the Fayette County Jail on a $500,000 bail, and he's scheduled to appear in court March 12th. So they're gonna lock him up for a week or so. Yeah, so for 8 days he's gonna be in there. So he's accused of stabbing Todd Schumacher, according to an indictment in circuit court. So according to the court documents, Donegi, 20, obtained a dangerous instrument, insulted the victim, mistreatment of an animal. Oh my God, put Schumacher's dog in a hot oven. The animal suffered multiple burns, according to the information. So yeah, there's domestic violence in gay couples. So that's actually sad. It's sad for them too, and I wonder how pitiful and pathetic the other gay man is, because he's already sort of tortured him, right? He was arrested or whatever, putting a dog in the oven. I guess I don't know if he turned it on. Please don't tell me he did that. But he'd already got in trouble for that once, and so since they're still together, that's weird. Now he's stabbing you. He's doing that to your dog. Now he's stabbing you. So you probably should, break free, get some backbone, break free. So Bowling Green Independent Schools will need a new superintendent after the school year. I already said that. I'll just leave it on here to finish up. So we got the Hilltoppers for quarter. Rand Paul. Rand Paul was he moved there when he was 30 years old. He's like 50-something years old now. So he's been in Kentucky for only 20 years. Most of his life he was, living in other places. Texas. He grew up in Texas. He was born in Pennsylvania. And eventually when he was 30... he resides in Kentucky. He's got his medical license here. So other things to see. Rand Paul's family and his people, the people that he knows, will be in Bowling Green. So I'm sure that has an influence on the politics there. Don Carlos Buell defeated Braxton Bragg in the Battle of Perrysville. So that's what ended the Confederate government, the initiative or the offensive. I think the Battle of Shiloh is what killed the first governor, Confederate governor. So that's, I don't know. Go Don Carlos Buell, right? And Stephen Burbridge is one of my favorite liberal heroes, and basically he just kicked ass and took names in the Civil War. And Don Carlos Buell also did the same thing, because he totally crushed and destroyed the Confederate government. The third largest university in Kentucky is WKU, and there's 4,600 employees. So that's a lot of people that's in education, that's working for the state. 4,600 employees. So that's a demographic that you'd want to target. You would also want to target the 60,000 people that's in Bowling Green. When you check out the metro area, in fact, it expands to 162,000. So it gets 100,000 more. I don't know how big this metro area is. And if you expand Covington, it only goes up to 61. But if you expand it to include Cincinnati, if instead of calling Kentucky side Greater Cincinnati, you call the Ohio side Greater Covington. Because, we got the airport here, but they say it's a Cincinnati airport, but it's in Boone County. And so that means it's in Kentucky. So why would you call Cincinnati Airport when it's actually in It's not. It's in its own city, really, but it's closer to Covington than it is Cincinnati. There's another big thing in Bowling Green is they have the Corvette Museum, and they actually have the only Corvette assembly plant in the United States. So all Corvettes come out of Kentucky, specifically Bowling Green, the Corvette assembly plant. There's an airport. They have an airport there. So that's actually, I just heard there's like 2 airports in Breckinridge County. And somebody was saying that there's not enough industry here because there's not enough transportation. We need a 4-lane highway, but we got CSX, we got a train, we got lots of river, and then we got 2 airports. I don't know if they're just like, landing strips or whatever, but there's 2 of them. One's right next to Hardinsburg, and then the other one's right next to the Rough River picnic area. So that's amazing. So that's really cool. Hadley Hilton. This is the last thing, but there's a Hadley Hilton, and it's basically like a trailer park hotel. There's about 5 or 6 trailers, not stacked on top of each other. There's like steps going from one to the other, but it looks really cool. It looks kind of white trashy, but it also looks, for a hotel, that sounds fun. It sounds kind of cool, to be honest with you. He just kind of took a hill, and he's got 4 or 5 of them stacked up, and then he rents them out. I guess that's the Hilton, so I just kind of assumed it's kind of the hotels. It'd be weird to market people's houses, So that's my understanding. The 2 other famous people besides Rand Paul that comes out of Bowling Green, Nappy Roots, my old Kentucky home, my old Kentucky home. John Carpenter, he was the director for Halloween and a whole bunch of other movies. So John Carpenter, Nappy Roots, Rand Paul, those are the 3 most famous people out of Bowling Green. Knowledge-based, technology-driven economy, that's what one of their websites said that they do. Northern WNKY is a TV station there. That's who's going to be interviewing Jeff Young. 325 Emmett Avenue, 42101-2708. My bad. 270-781-2140. 2727 Russellville Road. 270-781-1313. 270-781-1313. So that's the for WBKO. And WBKO was the first news media outlet to actually cover Jeff Young and his lawsuit against Jack Conway for intentionally pushing him out of the Democratic Party, which Jack Conway, I think, actually, my legal opinion is that he has nothing to do with it. While he's a candidate, he wants to get as much influence as possible, so good for him. But Patrick Hughes, the chairman of the Democratic Party, did not listen to his own bylaws, and so he broke, he broke his own bylaws, so he broke the law, and he's suing money for it because they're not supposed to choose any of the candidates, but the Democratic Party in Kentucky has been endorsing candidates. And so the WBKO kind of maybe broke the ice, maybe put the crack in the dam of ignoring Jeff Young's campaign. And now you have WNKY who wants to interview him. So, I'm going to go with him, and we'll see how actually that turns out. So I think that's that covers Bowling Green, Kentucky. So let's check out what Bowling Green, Kentucky has to offer the world. I'm sorry. Yeah, so peace out. Occupy.